The physical proof that God exists is revealed by the obvious fact that Earth is flat. And a flat Earth has no need to spin or move, as you will soon realize in this video. Therefore, if the Earth does not spin or move, it becomes self-evident that all the heavenly bodies revolve around Earth. And if all the heavenly bodies revolve around us, it proves we're not a random accident of evolution from the Big Bang cosmic event. Rather, it means we are a purposefully created and strategically placed planet. Which beyond any doubt reveals there is a supreme intelligent hand behind the creation of Earth. In summary, we will explore the 5 most powerful reasons why we actually live in a geocentric reality instead of a heliocentric one. So what are the definitions of geocentric and heliocentric? Geo means Earth and centric means in or at the center. Therefore, combined they describe the astronomical model of the solar system with Earth at the center. And helio means sun, and combined with centric they describe the astronomical model of the solar system as having the sun at the center, which since the 16th century became the adopted model until this day. But the geocentric model shown here, as most are, is incorrect. Why? Well, as we will explore later, the Sun and Moon do not orbit outside of Earth. Both lights orbit within the Earth's atmosphere. More about this later. For those reasons, let's now explore the 5 strongest proofs of a flat geocentric Earth. Proof number 1. Gravity does not exist, but density does. Proof number 2. Parallel sun rays do not exist, but splayed ones do. Proof number 3. A totally parallel sky to Earth does not exist, but a high arched dome does. Proof number 4. The size of the sun is not constant. It changes as per the law of perspective. Proof number 5. The star constellations do not and have never changed. They are constant. Beginning now with proof number 1. Gravity doesn't exist. And we'll explore the following subtopics: A. Force of gravity, B. Natural physics of water, C. Centrifugal and centripetal forces, and D. Density exists. A. The force of gravity. So ask yourself, if gravity is really a uniform force strong enough to hold all the world's oceans, buildings, animals, and people stuck to the surface of a spinning ball, then it should be impossible for gravity to simultaneously be weak enough to allow all clouds, birds, bugs, and planes to float, fly, take off, and travel freely unabated in any direction. Take a brief moment to think about that. In other words, gravity can somehow hold down and prevent billions of liters of water all over Earth from spilling onto continents, yet that same gravity is unable to hold down mere clouds and small flying creatures and airplanes as well. Absurd. Again, if gravity is strong enough to curve the massive expanse of oceans around a globular Earth, it would be impossible for fish and other creatures to swim through such forcefully held water. Next, Natural physics of water. Water always finds its level. The absurdity of the globe is believing that water's surface takes the shape of what is underneath. Even if oceans were forced to stick to the ball Earth because of gravity, the water would still remain level, not curved. The globe is a lie. Next, centrifugal and centripetal forces. A centrifugal force is inevitably created when an object spins on its axis, which results in any other object attached to it or resting on it being diverted away from the axis point. Example: the sport known as hammer throw, where the individual gains momentum and velocity by spinning on their axis. As soon as they let go of the handle, the steel ball is then hurled away from them. And if you've ever played on this merry-go-round, you will have experienced firsthand the force pulling you away from the center. That's no fiction or theory. That's why you have to hold on tight to avoid being thrown off. Guess what though? Mainstream education and media teach that any centrifugal force is just fictitious, fake, pseudo, when in fact you can clearly feel and see its effects. This is typical of satanic deceptions which force the individual to disregard his or her own God-given senses. Newton's laws are classic Freemason satanic deception. Later, please watch this video below and notice the subtlety with which the viewer is swayed into believing that observable centrifugal forces are just pseudo-science. And only one commenter caught on and expressed dissatisfaction with the video. Everyone else who left comments blindly accepted the video's arguments. Now, by reason of our senses, we clearly know the effects of centrifugal forces are real, and that such forces radiate outwards. We know this because, as true science dictates, a claim must be repeatable, observable, testable, and falsifiable. Otherwise, it is pseudo-science. Yet, if we really live on a spinning globe, why has there never been evidence to show that resting things on the surface of Earth are forced outward centrifugally, even ever so slightly, such as bodies of water or any non-fixed thing, like a leaf, just resting on the Earth? Instead, what we find is that large bodies of water and even feathers and leaves on the ground remain utterly motionless, without wind interference of course. But how so on a spinning globe? A spinning globe without evidence of the slightest observable centrifugal effects simply defies all science, logic, and common sense. If the Earth was spinning 1,000 miles per hour, the oceans would fly off into space. By now you should be asking, so then what does keep the waters and other physical objects like myself planted firmly on the Earth? Simply, everything on Earth has a mass and a density at differing degrees. Which brings us to our next subtopic: density exists. Today's credit for the law of gravity goes to Sir Isaac Newton, who is widely regarded as, quote, one of the greatest mathematicians and most influential scientists of all time, and as a key figure in the scientific revolution, unquote. In reality, he was a fraud. quick note from this book criticizing Newton's law of gravity. Any object which is heavier than the air and which is unsupported has a natural tendency to fall by its own weight. Newton's famous apple at Woolsthorpe, or any other apple when ripe, loses hold of its stalk and, being heavier than the air, drops as a matter of necessity to the ground, totally irrespective of any attraction of the earth. For if such attraction existed, why does not the earth attract the rising smoke, which is not nearly so heavy as the apple? The answer is simple, because the smoke is lighter than the air and, therefore, does not fall but ascends. Gravitation is only a subterfuge employed by Newton in his attempt to prove that the earth revolves around the sun, and the quicker it is relegated to the tomb of all the Capulets, the better will it be for all classes of society. Newton was known for his occultic beliefs. He was a pseudo-Christian, and gravity is one of many Freemason deceptions perpetrated upon the people of the world. Congratulations, you made it to the end of proof number 1 of 5, gravity doesn't exist. Now, proof number 2, splayed sunrays exist, not parallel ones. The way to prove beyond doubt that the sun is in fact within our atmosphere is by revealing to you that any light source shining close through an object will have light rays and spots that splay outward, and conversely, any light source shining from far through an object will have light rays and spots which remain together and parallel. You can recreate such effects yourself by using your own cell phone light shining through paper, tinfoil or cardboard with holes made in it. Very simple. Repeatable, observable, testable, and falsifiable. Otherwise, it is pseudo-science. And when you have time later, please watch this video shown. It's on YouTube channel P-Brain. Check his playlists. He has done tremendous work in sourcing many amazing videos which show incontrovertible proof that Earth is flat. But for now, let's continue a little bit more. The following pictures you're about to see were taken by me using my iPhone 8 camera. The best way to see evidence that light sources are splayed outwards when shining close through an object is simply by using your own eyes and by actually venturing out into the real world. Splayed sunrays prove that the Earth is within our atmosphere, best viewed from when the sun is at about 45 degrees angle in the sky, which is 3 p.m. roughly, until sunset. Therefore, the sun is not a light source shining out 93 million miles away from us. The sun and the moon are the two greatest light sources shining within our own atmosphere. Here are 7 amateur photographs that a friend sent me, which he found on the internet, showing clouds directly behind the sun. And note how close the sun is to the clouds in front of it too. Next, you're going to see amateur footage of a 1-minute video sent to me by a friend who found it on the internet. I have not edited it in any way whatsoever. Pay attention to the clouds surrounding the sun on all sides and see how close and local the sun truly is. I'm not asking you to outright believe all you've just seen. Rather, I'm saying that after watching this entire video I've done for you, you will realize there's far more truth to the flat earth than the globe earth. Also, the following picture you're about to see is of the moon, which I took on Sunday the 25th of April 2021 at 20:06 using my iPhone 8 camera on top of one of the highest vantage points in my area. We will shortly talk more about the dome surrounding Earth, but if you look at the moon with your own eyes just before sunset, as shown here, you will realize that like the sun, the moon is also within the dome firmament of Earth, not without. Trust your God-given eyesight. Obviously, my iPhone camera could not do justice by showing how large the moon really appeared that afternoon, but it was a great way on a clear afternoon looking dead east to view the moon actually in front of the dome, not behind it. The dome or firmament is the area with bluish-grayish color transitioning into peach pink, and you can clearly see that the moon is in front of the dome firmament. We've all dismissed what our own eyes are showing us, which reminds me of a great quote. Look at what's in your eyes, not what's in your mind. By And an even better quote, the wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walketh in darkness, from Ecclesiastes 2 verse 14, King James Version. In other words, everybody has eyes in the head, but only the wise man uses them. The following two pictures are similar examples of the moon being local and within our atmosphere. You will notice one major thing about sunlight and moonlight. Though both lights cover a great expanse of Earth at any given time, their light does not cover everywhere evenly with the same intensity all the time. Why? Because both the moon and sun are local and close by. If the sun and moon were far away, especially a sun millions of times larger than Earth, they both undoubtedly should provide evenly distributed light coverage over the Earth's surface when it is day or nighttime respectively, just as NASA and the ISS both show us in their footage over Earth. But in reality, that's not what we see, especially with amateur unofficial footage which has not been tainted by mainstream propaganda. This is another great video by P-Brain explaining light coverage of the sun and moon. But again, nothing beats using your own God-given eyesight and some common sense. You just need to be shown the way. That's all. That's the end of proof number 2 of 5. Splayed sun rays, not parallel ones. Now on to proof number 3. The sky is a high arched dome, not a dome which is fully parallel to the ground. First, before I show you more pictures and illustrations of a dome sky, let me explain this background picture you're looking at now, which you've been seeing since this video started, which I originally got from airpanner.com. This is a real picture over the Caucasus mountain system between the Black Sea and Caspian Sea. The dark navy blue part above the horizon, behind the sun, is the firmament dome. Take note of the flat horizon and how close to the clouds this shot is. It is original and unedited footage, as you will realize why in this next screenshot. So, two things about this screenshot. Yes, there is a curvature now, but do you know why? Because this panoramic picture was taken at a higher altitude than the picture you previously saw. This is the picture you previously saw, which is also my background pic for this entire video that you constantly see. Again, notice how close the clouds are to the viewer. That's important. Then, this is the same pic as the one you just saw, except I used the viewer within this website to get an elevated view and to focus more on the clouds below so that you can see that this time, as opposed to the previous pic, there is now a noticeable curvature all of a sudden, simply because the panoramic photo has been taken from a higher altitude. Still confused? Don't be, it's simple. Although the Earth is flat, the shape of the perimeter or boundary of Earth is circular, its circumference, just like my dining room table here. Therefore, one is certain to eventually see the actual circumference of the Earth as one rises, even though Earth is flat and level. But that's not the point of this segment in the video. I just wanted to get that out of the way because I know it would have interfered with the rest of the things I'm about to show you. Back to the point of this segment, being that the sky we see, especially on a clear night, is not a totally parallel sky to Earth. If you use your God-given eyesight, you will actually see that the sky is a high arched dome, precisely as this picture illustrates. But why does this matter? Plainly because if Earth were a globe, then the sky we would see when we look up and at the horizon would always be parallel to the ground of Earth. Because on a globe model like this, the distance between the ground and the sky is constant all the time. On a globe, if you looked up all around you, the sky would be totally uniform in shape and appearance, and it would seem quite shallow because on a globe, the sky is shallow. Just look at any globe Earth picture to see for yourself. But in reality, that's not what we see. In reality, what we see is that the sides of the sky are actually very steep and they rise up perpendicular to the ground of Earth, like a wall, and not parallel to the ground of Earth, like a ceiling. Very important, in this pano shot you can clearly see the stars mapping out the shape of the dome firmament. And you will shortly realize why that's important. What confuses people though, and how we have been intentionally deceived, is that people think that the cloud cover is the highest point in the sky and that anything beyond the sky is just space. Not true. Yes, on a globe, this should be the ultimate point at which the atmosphere ends and space begins, even though they tell us there are layers of atmosphere. But again, reality shows us differently. So if it isn't clear to you yet, the dark navy blue portion above the horizon, behind the sun, is not space. It is actually the dome spreading over the Earth. That's what they keep hidden from us. Yes, cloud cover runs parallel to the Earth's ground, but the dome firmament does not. That's because majority of cloud cover spans close to the Earth. You can easily see it in real life. This is another picture I took of the clear sky from my bathroom window facing dead west on the 21st of April 2021 at 24 minutes past 9 using my iPhone camera. You should just barely see that I took a picture of Orion's belt above the palm tree. Do you see how nicely Orion's belt presents itself to you, almost on the horizon, facing parallel to your face, the observer, and not to the ground? Again, almost on the horizon. I hope I'm not losing you guys. Maybe it would have been easier for me to film myself using some props to explain. Anyways, let's carry on. Another pic I saved to show an example of the almost vertical wall of the dome firmament facing parallel to the viewer's face and not to the ground. The point being made is that we are 100% certain that the sky is a dome because the stars actually map out the shape of the dome firmament. Because the stars are actually within the firmament walls. Do yourself a favor, go to airpano.com and use the panoramic viewing feature to look at the stars and the shape they form around the Earth. Then, on a clear night, go outside to a high vantage point in your area and use your own God-given sight to see the shape of the dome firmament that the stars actually map out. You cannot have a dome-shaped sky on a globe Earth, and on a flat Earth, the sky meets the horizon vertically, facing parallel to the viewer, which should never happen on a globe Earth sky. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night." Genesis 1 verse 14, King James Version. Okay, that was the end of proof number 3 of 5. The sky is a high arched dome, not a dome which is fully parallel to the ground. Now on to proof number 4. The size of the sun is not constant, it changes as per the law of perspective. Let's begin with the law of perspective. The law of perspective dictates that the angle and height at which an object is seen diminishes the farther one recedes from the object, until at a certain point the line of sight and the seemingly uprising surface of the earth converges to a vanishing point, i.e. the horizon line, beyond which the object is invisible. Your eye level is your reference point for drawing the perspective lines. All lines above your eye level will go down to the horizon vanishing point, and all lines below your eye level will go up to the horizon vanishing point. See all straight lines, including the horizon, at a vast distance as well. Notice the cloud cover and how it too runs parallel to the ground and therefore vanishes as well. Again, cloud cover is not to be confused for the ultimate shape of the sky, as per previous explanations. So, quite simply, to see that the sun does indeed change its shape, you'll either need a solar lens attachment for a camera to take pictures or footage of, or you can view other videos of people doing so. You can also use your naked eyesight to view the size of the sun soon after it has risen and shortly before it has set, as compared to the size at midday. You'll clearly see the difference with the midday sun being the largest. but it's not advised to view more than once or twice with the naked eye, as you could suffer severe retinal damage. Later, watch these 3 great vids. They do the actual work of showing you the real evidence that the size of the sun does indeed change from sunrise to sunset. When the sun rises from the east, moving west, it is moving on its circuit on a circular route, just as this next model correctly shows. Therefore, as it moves along its circuit, it also gets nearer to those in its path, and as such it must change in size because it is coming from far and moving closer to the observer. Please watch those 3 vids or buy a solar lens and do the test measurements yourself. Again, if you use your own eyesight to view it, take extreme caution when doing so. As this pic shows, there are 67 Bible verses about the movement of the sun and 0 on the movement of the earth. Also, have you ever wondered about the answer to the question below? Why do we see the moon and sun as the same size? Is it just a coincidence that the evolutionary Big Bang event just so happened to position our planet, out of billions of them, the exact right distance in many millions of miles or kilometers away from both the moon and sun to form a perfect concentric circular shadow between the sun and moon called an eclipse? Here are just 4 mainstream reasons for the apparent similarity in size of the sun and moon and their astonishment with it as well. Mainstream fact number 1, and I quote, "Did you know the moon is about 400 times smaller than the sun, but it also just happens to be 400 times closer. The result is that from Earth they appear to be the same size." If you don't believe me, look it up yourself. Even NASA agrees. And I do encourage you to read through these 3 links as shown, especially the NASA link. It's like they're actually mocking us by providing us with like childlike illustrations, giving reasons why the sun and the moon appear the same size. And even those who agree with the mainstream narratives themselves still find it a very odd coincidence. And I quote here, "Scientists say that the odds of this happening elsewhere in the universe is about 1 in 1 billionth chance, and what's more, there is no apparent physical reason why this has to be the case. Is it only an interesting coincidence that the moon should so nearly perfectly blot out the sun?" End of quote. And here's another one. And I quote again, "Is that just a wild coincidence, or is there some reason behind this fact?" That's what Brian Meadows wants to know, asking, quote, "From a scientific point of view, what are the chances that the moon and the sun would appear the same size in the sky?" It's a great question, and one that still has great uncertainties surrounding it. This is a problem-solving principle known as Occam's razor. Read when you have time. The simplest explanations may not always be the right ones. Life can sometimes be complex, but then one must provide necessary evidence for complex assumptions, or else the simplest explanations are the right ones. So let's see how well you've been paying attention thus far, and let's test your logic. If the sun changes size due to perspective, as we've established, due to the fact that it moves on a circuit first toward then away from us, Then why does the sun never disappear into the vanishing point just as the law of perspective dictates? Remember, so why doesn't the sun vanish then? Why does the sun always set, as shown, with portions of its body slowly disappearing beneath the horizon rather than vanishing completely at a point, if the sun actually resides and moves within Earth's atmosphere? The answer is simple. The sun does not move in a straight line. Remember? Simply, as a result of both the circular route and sheer size of the sun, it does not get a chance to disappear completely into a vanishing point. For if the circuit of the sun were a straight line trajectory, it certainly would vanish, but the fact is the great light moves in a circular route. For example, imagine a tall row of round objects reaching say 1 kilometer into the sky. Then imagine those objects extending continuously into the horizon in a straight line as indicated by the green arrow. Eventually, due to the law of perspective, those objects moving farther away from the viewer's line of sight would steadily vanish as they continue in a straight row. This is my attempt to show you that any object progressing in a straight line into the distance will much sooner disappear than the exact same duplicate object traveling in an arched line, indicated by the blue arrow. Therefore, any object moving along an arc will maintain its size more consistently, and this is why the sun only loses portions of its body behind the horizon rather than vanishing completely into a small dot as it travels. In other words, the law of perspective has a less dramatic effect when an object moves in a curve or circular route as opposed to a straight line away from the observer. Do you get me now, or shall I repeat that in Greek? And yet another reason why the sun and moon throughout the year also change size as per the law of perspective is the same reason why we get different seasons. From YouTube channel Rob Skiba. Video title: How the 4 Seasons Work on the Flat Earth Model. The full original video is 13 minutes long. This one is sped up. And Rob does great work in illustrating the actual paths that the sun and moon take which create our 4 seasons. In short, whichever places the sun and moon move directly overhead along their paths are also the places where the sun and moon appear larger. I'll provide a link to this original video. Lastly, wherever the sun moves closest to is also the area of Earth experiencing summer, and conversely, the area where the sun moves furthest from will experience winter and will also be the place where the sun will appear smaller in size as well. Oh yes, and this also explains why one sees the sun rise and set along different locations upon the horizon during the course of the year. Please do watch the full original. So simple yet so elegant in design is God's handiwork. That was the end of proof number 4 or 5. The size of the sun is not constant, it changes as per the law of perspective. Now onto the last proof, proof number 5. The star constellations do not and have never changed, they are constant. That is because we who are alive today have seen the very same star constellations in the sky as those who were alive over 2,000 years ago. We know this for at least 2 reasons. Number 1, the world's oldest star chart, carbon dated between 32,500 to 38,000 years old. And number 2, the Book of Job in the Holy Bible, King James Version. Job chapter 9 verse 9, which maketh Arcturus, Orion, and Pleiades. The oldest existing complete Hebrew texts of the Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh, are called the Aleppo Codex, written in 10 AD. Although much older fragments of the Hebrew Bible exist, we still have a reliable source just over 2,000 years old. The Bear, Arcturus, Orion, and the Pleiades. And if you're curious, according to 19th century spectred theologian Albert Barnes, he estimates that Job himself most likely lived 1,800 years prior to Jesus Christ. So in theory, we have an account of the constellations going back roughly 3,500 to 4,000 years ago. But let's just briefly delve more into the issue of carbon dating. We know that the carbon dated claims are flawed and overestimated. This article provides an easy to understand explanation why there are 5 inherent flaws with carbon dating. I urge you to read in your own time as part of your own ongoing self-education. Link below. But we can quickly read through just one portion of this article at the end where the author provides an apt quote. The author says, perhaps the best description of the problem in attempting to use the carbon-14 dating method is to be found in the words of Dr. Robert Lee. In 1981, he wrote an article for the Anthropological Journal of Canada in which stated, "The troubles of the radiocarbon dating method are undeniably deep and serious. Despite 35 years of technological refinement and better understanding, the underlying assumptions have been strongly challenged, and warnings are out that radiocarbon may soon find itself in a crisis situation. Continuing use of the method depends on a fix-it-as-we-go approach, allowing for contamination here, fractionation there, and calibration whenever possible. It should be no surprise then that fully half of the dates are rejected. The wonder is, surely, that the remaining half has come to be accepted. No matter how useful it is, though, the radiocarbon method is still not capable of yielding accurate and reliable results. There are gross discrepancies, the chronology is uneven and relative, and the accepted dates are actually the selected dates." There's also argon-argon and potassium-argon dating, which are shown to be unreliable, but again, in your own time, read through, link below. Therefore, to bring this final proof number 5 all together, we have a conservative estimate going back just over 2,000 years ago, based upon biblical records revealing the very same constellations we still view today. Then we have the world's oldest star chart as per that BBC article from 2003, which carbon dated the chart to between 32,500 to 38,000 years old. And I also provided you 2 articles explaining the inherent flaws of both dating methods, which I hope you will read through. The only other claim to investigate is what evolutionists say is the reason for the constant appearance of the constellations for thousands of years. Evolutionist theory states that the universe is billions of years old, as is Earth, which they claim to be 4.5 billion years old. These are claims that are all supported by mainstream media and mainstream outlets such as National Geographic. Simply stated, Though evolutionists agree that the same constellations have indeed been recorded by humanity for thousands of years, as in this article, they nonetheless still attempt to dismiss the importance of the constant appearance of the star constellations for thousands of years by claiming that the universe is billions of years old and that humanity's short existence on Earth has limited us from being able to view the apparent change in the stars, which apparently takes hundreds of thousands to millions of years to change. Therefore, guys, because of their claim, this now leads us to the next subtopic, the age of the Earth and its inhabitants. As we briefly explore the age of Earth and its inhabitants, hopefully you will come to realize that the evolutionists' claims of an age-old Earth and universe are all just logical fallacies and complete pseudoscience. For example, we have been brought up to believe that dinosaurs were creatures that lived millions of years ago. But did you know that for decades, and especially as of 2003 and 2012 respectively, we have legitimate evidence of soft and fresh dinosaur tissue, all of which completely undercuts the evolutionists' claims of dinosaurs that supposedly lived millions of years ago. Check out the next 9 pictures. Major credit for soft, fresh dinosaur tissue discoveries goes primarily to the following 2 people. And if you still don't fully realize the implications of fresh dinosaur tissue, read this article. And this next part. If the significance of fresh dinosaur tissue is not yet apparent to you, then I want you to watch what this gentleman in the blue shirt has to say. He's a professor in microbiology, and he is one of the gentlemen that helped discover the fresh dinosaur tissue with that other gentleman named Mark Armitage. Pay attention for the next 3 minutes and listen carefully.
Because any competent biochemist knows that tissue, cells, proteins break down. They're not concrete, they don't just exist for eons of time, they break down. And in fact, they tend to break down fairly quickly depending upon the conditions. And certainly in Hell Creek, the conditions would be warm up, cool down, warm up, cool down. We found this horn, for example, just a mere 1 foot below the surface. Now, it was in very solid sandstone, so we had to chisel it out, but it was just below the surface. So there was no thermal protection by being deep in the ground. So it would have been very much subjected to fluctuations of hot and cold and hot and cold. And any biochemist can tell you that is the fastest way to destroy material. It's difficult enough to envision it surviving for 4,000 or 5,000 years, but 60 million years, 70 million years, see, that really becomes very difficult to make any kind of biochemical basis for how it could have survived.
Okay, well,
You're now faced with how could you explain the survival of this, the pristine survival of this, not only for so long, but in very unpristine conditions. There's nothing pristine about Hell Creek, Montana, for example. It's not permafrost. It's not like these were in a deep freeze for millions of years. Like we mentioned before, the temperature fluctuations, water. You know, what water will degrade proteins. When we pulled the horn out of the ground, it had water underneath it just from the seepage of rainwater. That's why when we first dug the horn out, we thought, oh, there's nothing going to be in there. And there was. So these are not dry. They're not sealed in some kind of, stainless steel vault. They're subjected to all kinds of conditions that would degrade this stuff. And so then the controversy has been, how do you explain it? And if you read some of the literature, there's almost like desperation of, would you guys please explain this? Because they recognized what the implications of this could be. Now, some people would claim, well, it means nothing because we know how old they are, and therefore it just means it survived somehow, big deal. But how do you know how old they are? Well, you used methods, supposed methods of dating. Well, this is a method of dating. The tissue itself can't be discounted as part of a method of dating. So why do you say that doesn't count, but this does count? Well, it's all the paradigm drives your conclusions. The paradigm is it has to be old. Therefore, methods that give us an old fossil are what we choose. Something that doesn't give us an old fossil, like tissue, we have to reject or explain away. And the big push at the moment is to explain it away, to come up with some explanation of how the tissue survived. If the fossils of dinosaurs have been dated incorrectly, which I would say this is clear evidence they have, then it's very likely the fossils of any organism have been dated incorrectly, and therefore then the geologic ages themselves are incorrect. And we have to go back and recognize that they use evolution as their control, if you will. It's the filter. If I don't get a date that fits what evolution expects, then the date is rejected. It doesn't make a difference what the date is. It doesn't make a difference how you came about getting the date if it doesn't fit the filter of evolution, if it doesn't fit what we need. If you have something that's out of the Jurassic, but it's dated at 300 million years, that can't be right. Therefore, it's automatically tossed out. Why can't it be right? Because we have, in evolutionary assumptions, determined that organisms that lived during the period of the Jurassic are this old. And so it sets then the interpretation for everything. When you have problems like the soft tissue, see, you either have to reject the entire dating process or you have to reject the soft tissue. You know, you really can't have both. They're trying to have both, but it clearly is one or the other. You know, either the fossils aren't as old as we think they are, or there's some mysterious, unknown, magical process that preserves them. Well, which is more scientific? What we know today, the tissue can't last that long, therefore the fossils can't be that old, regardless of what other dating methods you claim you've used.
So that's the end of proof number 5, and also the end of our pursuit into the hard facts and information about the reality of our flat earth. Hope it wasn't too bad. Which brings us to the very last segment of this whole video, the basic biblical and philosophical rationale for a flat earth. So I want you to answer the following questions. If there is only one Earth, and if there is only one Savior, the only begotten Son, sent to that one Earth, who was born in Bethlehem, Palestine, and not on Mars or any other planet, how then is it possible that Earth is just one of billions of planets in the known universe, which is floating and spinning and moving around aimlessly on the edge of the galaxy, as we've been told? God's story of creation and salvation only centers on Earth, not on any other planet. Therefore, it doesn't make sense that Earth is a moving, spinning globe floating on the outskirts of the so-called galaxy. We simply cannot be anywhere else but at the center of all creation, especially after knowing that God our Father sent the Son to be the Savior of the world. And therefore, knowing that God purchased the salvation of all believers on earth with His very own precious blood, leads us to the obvious conclusion that we on earth are the center of all creation, because we on earth are loved by God. As a result, if we are the center of creation, then earth does not need to spin or move. For what reasons would earth need to spin and move when we are the center? Therefore, earth can only be flat and immovable. Again, that's because we are at the very center of our Holy Father's attention, simply because He loves us that much. And here are my 3 favorite biblical verses describing a flat earth. The Lord looketh from heaven, He beholdeth all the sons of men. From the place of His habitation He looketh upon all the inhabitants of the earth. And the second verse, from Psalm 5 verse 3, My voice shalt thou hear in the morning, O Lord. In the morning will I direct my prayer unto Thee, and will look up. And the best one, Behold, He cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see Him, and they also which pierced Him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of Him. Even so, Amen. Dear people, we do not serve a God of confusion. We serve a God of natural laws and wisdom and logic. But the hallmark of satanic doctrine is confusion. In Satan's world, there is no right or left, up or down, good or bad, male or female, etc. In Satan's world, you do as you like and believe what you want. Satanic doctrines encourage people to forego their God-given senses and logic. But God encourages us to question and to think and to use wisdom and understanding. Wisdom crieth without, she uttereth her voice in the streets. She crieth in the chief place of concourse, in the openings of the gates. In the city she uttereth her voice, saying, How long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity? And the scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. The Holy Bible is full of verses which reveal that Earth is flat and immovable, and only that. Insincere skeptics and plain-faced deceivers like to say that such verses in the Bible are merely poetic and parables and should not be taken literally. But those same people cannot point out even one verse that describes Earth as a globe which moves and spins, neither around the sun. And neither can such skeptics and deceivers point out even one verse that suggests the sun is stationary, with all heavenly bodies moving around the sun, as in the heliocentric model. People seem to not realize that Galileo Galilei used those same excuses, plus spurious scientific claims, to support heliocentrism. But he simply built upon Nicholas Copernicus's theories of heliocentrism. Yet it should come as no surprise that Copernicus himself was a Freemason, and even to this day has a Freemasonic lodge consecrated in his honor on the 30th of April 2011 in Australia. In short, heliocentrism is nothing but a So we finally entered the last stretch of this video, and I want to leave you with the following conclusions to reflect upon. Why are we so quick to believe every spirit on earth? Have we not learned and realized who actually rules earth? Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight, that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now is my kingdom not from hence. In whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. And the devil, taking him up into an high mountain, shewed unto him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said unto him, All this power will I give thee, and the glory of them, for that is delivered unto me, and to whomsoever I will give it." And have we not learned that he who rules earth deceives the entire world too? Do we not realize why it is that we are forbidden to believe the world and to follow after the world? So, here's a quick breakdown of why we've all been deceived. So basically, before Satan could even think of attempting to deceive all of humanity who are living today, he first had to fool the whole world into believing that there is nothing special about us, that we are a result of only pure chance, that there is no life after death, and therefore no meaning to life, and therefore no consequence for our actions on earth. The perfect satanic doctrine. The globe earth model was the single ultimate deception which allowed Satan to fulfill his many evil objectives today. Without the globe earth lie, Satan would not have been able to deceive us with the many other great lies we've come to believe. That's why there is a massive psychological operations attempt via mainstream media and others to discredit flat earthers as crazy. That's why YouTube actively censors genuine flat earth videos. You will easily scroll for about 10 to 20 seconds before you find a genuine flat earth video. Every global lie that we have foolishly believed today, and there are many, are built upon the globe earth paradigm, whose purpose is to hide God. If people knew that earth is flat and does not move, then people would realize everything we see in the sky revolves around us. And if everything revolves around us, then that means we are undeniably important. And it proves there is a creator who intentionally and strategically placed us at the center, rather than floating aimlessly on the so-called edge of the galaxy, amongst billions of other so-called stars and planets. If people realized that we are intentionally created, then they would realize there is a creator, and they would always seek him. And if they sought the creator, then many more would be found of him and believe in him. And if many more believed in the Creator, that would mean many would have a relationship with him. And if many would have a relationship with the Creator, that also means that many would be aware of the Creator's archenemy called Satan. Therefore, very few would ever fall for the many deceptions which the enemy Satan has used as a weapon against humanity for millennia until this very day. And trust me, there are lies which over 99% of us believe as true today. So, unfortunately, too many, sadly, have been fooled into believing there is no Creator, even in view of His great works all around us, and even though He shed His very own blood for us to be with Him forever. So my last question to you then is, what are you going to do about all of this? And please see this video linked below. 80% of the memes I used within my video I actually got from this video. A really good one. Thank you for watching. I know this video was a bit tedious to watch, but my aim was just to get this vital information out as soon as possible, which took forever. Please feel free to faithfully reproduce whatever information you found valuable and truthful from this video to create an even better one which will awaken the people. And don't forget to check the links and sources in the description below. And remember, only Jesus can save. Amen.